Okay, perfect. We are going to make a start. Thank you so much to all of you for being here today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Carly Urbanski, and I am the head of the Bristol Aging Better program. And before we get started on the real content, we just have a couple housekeeping things to go over today. Firstly, apologies. We were going to have live captioning, but with technical difficulties, that hasn't worked today. But we will be able to make that available at future meetings, and we will look at the recordings and getting the wording to anybody who needs that after this today, but apologies for that. And also during the Q&A, if you're happy to, you can ask questions in the chat or raise your hand with the reaction, or just raise your hand on the video. And we have the BAB team ready to be able to find all kinds of questions in the chat and be able to call on you as well. And if you can additionally, please keep yourself on mute for the duration, unless you are asking a question or speaking in the interactive session. And as you can see, this meeting is being recorded because we will be uploading it onto YouTube. So again, as some of you have already done, if you are more comfortable to have your camera off, that's fine. You're still able to participate as usual. And lastly, we're going to have the presentations and notes shared with everybody after the meeting, so you'll have access to all of it. And if you want to share it with any colleagues or anybody who couldn't be here today. So moving on to why we're actually here. Thank you again so much for being here. We are really pleased to be able to host this series of partnership meetings focusing on age-friendly work in Bristol. And it's great for us to be able to share what local people and organizations are doing to make the city more age-friendly, and a chance for us to start looking at where do we put more work into creating a more age-friendly space in Bristol. In all that we've done with the BAB program, our main goal was always to reduce social isolation and loneliness, which now we understand people are experiencing more than ever, especially even people who hadn't really experienced that in the past. And we really believe that a big part of how our city can build back stronger lies in so many of the foundations of our age-friendly work and becoming a more age-friendly city. So we do believe that now is the time to really create that change and work together and move forward to be more age-friendly. And the good news is that the Bristol Aging Better program has lots of resources and assets to provide help to the city, to yourselves, to be able to do so. Firstly, that we do have access to all of our BAB evaluation, and that so many of our BAB-funded interventions had truly statistically significant results that were able to prove that we were able to reduce isolation and loneliness with older people across the city for the years that we were running the different interventions. And we have access to all of that evaluation and the learning to be able to share with yourselves and other organizations and individuals to be able to look at what models work best and tips on how to improve services and to be able to cater to our audiences. And part of that does work into how we become more age-friendly as a city. And additionally, we have a great resource of being connected into the other age-friendly cities in the UK. This is a big asset because we're able to draw on experiences from other cities who have gone through some of this work before us and look at ones who are getting started now and look at strengths and weaknesses of their models, what they've put into place. And obviously Bristol is a unique city and we want to create our own path with age-friendly, but we're able to at least look at what other cities have done and be able to replicate good examples, but also kind of create our own space and try and become leaders of age-friendly work as well. So we have all these assets, all these things that we can build on. So now is really the time to still use the BAB team, the resources that we have, and be able to come to us for support. And we're able to help shape the city in terms of being an age-friendly city. And the main goals of BAB in the 7th year are really to focus on that evidence and to be able to kind of relay that into the age-friendly practices, as well as working with the city to make it more age-friendly. And we've already been working with the World Health Organization and those practices, and now is our chance to really help where we can make a difference with the city. And so today's topic of the meeting is so timely and imperative to all of our work. We're looking at the element of social participation. And in a time right now where we're looking at getting back out there and enjoying social contact again and participating in groups in real life, we need to constantly remember that for so many people, this would be a really exciting time. They're going to be eager to get out and about and do different things in person. But then on the flip side of that, we have people who are more anxious than ever to get out, and people who maybe used to participate in things, but now are feeling more withdrawn and nervous. So we're trying to cater to both. And we know how difficult that is, and everybody you're working with is going to be feeling that. So while this is really challenging, we need to all work hard to make sure that we're catering for everybody and not making assumptions about what people want or need, and really making sure we're asking older people what they need to feel more comfortable to get out and participate in things again. And that being said, that is one of our main goals with Age Friendly. It has always been about aiming to help ensure that Bristol was a place where people of all ages could grow older and feel safe and healthy and happy, with ample choices to be made about what activities they would or would not like to participate in, with as many options as possible based on their interests or abilities in that particular stage of life. And that is what we've always worked so hard to achieve over the last few years. And that's what Age Friendly will continue to do long into the future. So we're glad that you're here today to be on that journey with us and help make Bristol more age friendly. And today you're going to hear from some great speakers who have examples of how they're helping people right now to re-engage. And so it'll be great to hear from those and then be able to ask them questions as well. So firstly, I'm going to hand over to Bianca, who is the Age Friendly Officer for Bristol Aging Better. And she's going to talk more about age-friendly social participation work.
Thank you, Carly. Bear with me a second. I'm just going to put my presentation up. Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Bianca Rossetti and I have been working as the Age Friendly Project Officer at Bristol Aging Better since 2020, and I've been with the BABS team since the programme launched in 2015. Age Friendly City work is not new to Bristol, as Carly outlined, so joining the World Health Organisation's global network of age friendly cities was identified as one of the primary aims of the programme from the outset and included in the city's bid to the Lotteries Fulfilling Lives Aging Better Fund in 2014. And Bristol achieved membership of the network in 2018. So in order to join the network, we needed to complete a baseline assessment. So that's bringing together national and local data sets and having meaningful conversations with our older citizens. A charter created with older people to set out 9 clear visions for Bristol, for a Bristol, where age is no barrier to enjoying and fully participating in city life. And from there, create a strategy to address ideas for improvement and to make the most of the assets that we already have in our city's design, infrastructure, voluntary sector, culture, and most importantly, what people are already building in their communities. So all of what I've just outlined is done through the WHO's framework for age-friendly cities, which groups the patterns identified in urban areas that are best meeting the needs of ageing populations under 8 domains. So those are outdoor spaces and buildings, transport, housing, social participation, respect and social inclusion, civic participation and employment, community support and health services, and communication and information. So you can see here a diagram created by the WHO, which further groups them under 3 headings and which uses slightly different titles for the domains in some cases. And there are more person-centered ways to express those concepts too, such as feeling well for community support and health services. So as you can see, age friendliness has many facets and encompasses a huge range of concepts and aspects. Essentially, it's everything that changes in our inner world and the world around us as we age, and how organisations working in a place can be aware of and responsive to those changes. So we're now at the implementation stage of Bristol's age-friendly journey. The journey doesn't end with the WHO recognising us as an age-friendly city. It simply means that we have a good foundation of knowledge and good connections to be able to take things forward if we keep up momentum. And that's why we're holding these partnership meetings between now and March next year, to convey the knowledge base we already have under each domain and invite other organisations and individuals to bring their perspectives and ideas for solutions. So today we're focusing on social participation, which is particularly relevant at this moment in time for two reasons, both, as Carly mentioned, because of the current situation with the pandemic. The current situation offers both the opportunity for older people to reconnect in ways they haven't for up to 18 months, and also because after 6 years of the BAB programme, we have a really valuable body of evidence on what works to tackle and prevent isolation and loneliness. So that statistical significance that Carly mentioned earlier. So why is social participation a vital thing to consider when assessing the age friendliness of a place? So I'm sure we all know that our social lives are a significant component of our health. The oft-cited likening of chronic loneliness to smoking 15 cigarettes a day and other frightening statistics about how lacking good quality human relationships shortens our healthy life expectancy. Those all grab the headlines, but it's also common sense that our relationships with others impact our well-being. Participating in leisure, social, cultural and spiritual activities in the community, as well as with family and friends, promotes competence and helps establish and maintain supportive and caring relationships. However, it is about quality, not quantity. One-to-one relationships should be mutually beneficial, even if they're formally matched, such as a befriending service and a befriending relationship, and groups should foster an organic sense of belonging or shared identity. So firstly, let's look at what environmental factors can support good social connection in cities like Bristol. Here are 3 examples. Obviously, this list is not exhaustive, and we'll come on to discussing the myriad influences in our group discussion in the second half of the meeting. So housing and neighbourhoods. Now, people's private living space can impact their social well-being, being able to have guests, being in a decent home that doesn't make life in general difficult to manage. But what's also vital is neighbourhood social infrastructure. So meeting spots, places to sit with neighbours for coffee, information points and notice boards, allotments, and also having shared spaces in communal housing or multi-occupancy buildings. There were some really great examples of residential architecture designed to connect people, such as communal balconies and shared practical spaces designed to create what's called chance encounters with residents without compromising personal space. Arts and culture, so a good variety of shows, exhibitions, festivals, which are age inclusive and physically and financially accessible. And then something which we'll focus on quite a bit today, organised group activities, groups and activities. So these might be activities aimed at older people, intergenerational interest-based groups, lifelong learning classes and courses, organised social meetups such as the cafe meetups run by Friends Aging Better or the walking groups run by Changes, which Jack will speak about later, and local public events such as street parties. So what changes are common in later life that can affect access to social participation? First of all, it's important to say that none of these changes are unique to later life, and nor are they synonymous with later life. In fact, health conditions and social well-being can improve in later life, and there's been much reporting in recent years about the worrying levels of social isolation among 16 to 24-year-olds. But there are changes that can present a unique barrier in later life. So firstly, life changes. Bereavement, particularly the loss of a partner and becoming a carer, are most likely to occur in later life and can affect people's sense of companionship, as well as causing isolation from existing social networks. Grief can cause people to be hesitant to form new social relationships for many reasons and make it harder to stay socially active. Caring responsibilities can mean people don't have the time to see others socially. And if you're interested in learning more about approaches communities can take to supporting older people who have lost a partner, there are several fantastic learning reports on the Learning and Evaluation Hub on the BAB website about bereavement peer support and other models. And retirement can cause a drop-off in people's regular social interactions. This will have changed dramatically for most of us in employment these past 18 months, but many people's social lives are or were tied up with their work, whether it's going for a drink after work, exercising with a colleague around your working day, or just those daily social interactions that are no longer habit once people leave the workplace. People can also feel a loss of identity when they retire. That said, retirement can be a wonderful thing for many people who are able to retire when and how they choose, and can give people the time and freedom to nurture their social relationships more. However, people's options may be limited by having less disposable income, especially as increasing numbers of people are retiring to subsist on state pension alone. So health changes. Changes in mobility or ability can make getting to activities and social spaces more difficult and can cause anxiety about visiting new places. Accessible environments, decent public and community transport, and age-friendly businesses can all help to remove these barriers. And fluctuating health conditions can make it difficult to plan ahead if pain, energy, or mobility are different day to day. Age-friendly activities and events are flexible to ensure the comfort and accommodation for unpredictability. And then lastly, feeling different or left out. So people for whom English is not their first language can face language barriers, but cultural difference can also create a barrier where activities are clearly catering to people who grew up in the UK in a predominantly white community with assumed shared experiences. People who are not heterosexual or cisgender, so non-trans, can also be excluded from groups or activities which present an image of heteronormativity. Coming out later in life also presents unique challenges, and older people can also face higher levels of stigma and barriers to connecting with what can be seen as a quite young queer scene. And marketing towards particular age groups can be off-putting. People don't necessarily see themselves as old, and even if they do identify with their age or wear it with pride, they may want to be in a more diverse social environment than something with an arbitrary age threshold. Public and VCSE organisations can create infrastructure that helps overcome these challenges, and we'll explore that today. However, its inclusivity and sustainability relies on it being designed by, or at least in partnership with, the people whom it seeks to benefit. Not everyone enjoys group socialising. Without some social scaffolding for new groups, new members can end up feeling like they are on the outside looking in. There are a couple of recent reports which I'll send out with the meeting notes, one from University of Exeter and AGK Exeter, titled "Oh No, Not a Group," and that looked at the social cure and social curse dynamic, and also a really useful learning report from Ageing Better in Camden, which highlights the importance of a warm welcome for newcomers to groups, avoiding cliques and unhealthy group norms, and also applies that to online and phone groups. So essentially, people's social lives should not become more narrow as they get older. People should still be able to go out in the evenings and enjoy all of the social opportunities the city has to offer. There are some really positive examples of this through BAB-funded work, such as AGK Bristol's Fab Discos and groups creating theatre pieces through our microfunding scheme Kickstart. And I'm sure we're about to hear about other innovative and inclusive organised activities from our three other speakers today. And finally, a note on COVID-19. I'll be 30 seconds, Carly. I'm aware I'm 60 seconds over. COVID-19 is going to underpin all work in this area for the foreseeable, really, barring the development of super vaccines. Prior to the pandemic, we already knew that barriers to a healthy and happy social life can become greater the longer someone is socially isolated. And we're now at the point where people over 70 they've been the most likely of any age cohort to have spent upwards of a year with very little in-person social contact outside of their household or support bubble, and community and arts activities haven't been shut down. Recently, people of all ages have expressed the difficulty in re-socialising, with a common experience being the quick draining of one's social battery. And there's obviously the anxiety about the health risks of social contact, and in the background, the possibility of restrictions in the autumn. So sorry to end on a slightly negative note, but there are, of course, many reasons to be positive and fantastic success stories from the past year, which I'm really looking forward to hearing about from our other speakers who've been working directly to support that. Thanks.
Thank you, Bianca. That's really interesting and great to hear some good examples as well. So we're pleased to be joined today by three voluntary sector workers who will be talking to us about the work that they do to enable social participation. And just to say, we will take questions at the end of all of the presentations. So once all of the speakers have presented, So if you think of a question as we go along, please do pop it into the chat box, or we can come to you at the end if you raise your hand. So first up, I would like to welcome Tracy Edwards-Brown from Eastwood Community Trust. So over to you, Tracy.
Hi, just to let you know that I was also kind of part of some of the bad projects that were sort of taking place a few years back. So I'm new to Eastside Community Trust, but we've been lucky enough to actually be awarded monies from St Monica Trust to run a peer-to-peer project that works with people over the age of 55 in Easton and Lawrence Hill, mainly focusing on BAME groups. Next slide. Right, okay. And the aim of that group is to kind of utilize the skills and the experience of people. I've put here between 55 and 85, but you know, we do know that people kind of live longer, and you know, we want to be able to kind of be inclusive and include those members as well. But the project is prioritizing kind of what people want within Easton and Lawrence Hill. It's about building sort of like people's confidence in being able to kind of use the various assets that are within the community. But obviously, if I'm working with BAME groups, it kind of makes sense to kind of work quite closely and engage with groups that already exist within our community as well. Next one. So the main aim of the project is to actually deliver a weekly telephone line. That's not a befriending line, so it's not about us kind of collecting lots of names and then phoning people. So this is a line where people actually make that choice themselves about actually ringing in. And they can ring in and kind of have a chat, or just sit and sort of just talk through an issue or a problem that they've got. So we'll kind of talk about anything, but we're not saying that we are the experts. So we will tap into other organizations that have more expertise, maybe around one specific subject or not. But we're also looking to kind of develop activities and things over the phone, via the computer, so via Zoom, and also center-based stuff. We're looking also to develop a fortnightly lunch club and then celebratory events, because everybody loves a celebration. But again, this is all around sort of like talking with people over the age of 55 that also live in Easton and Lawrence Hill. So how we've done that. So we've done that through, next slide. Thank you. So we've done that, and we've only been established sort of since May. So we've done that through knocking doors, and that's quite a risky kind of thing to do, because we do know that there are some people that are not keen on kind of opening their doors during COVID. So it's, you know, knocking the door and then taking 10 steps back to be able to kind of talk to people. We've developed an online questionnaire, and we know again that there are the older generation that don't necessarily have access to computers. So we're not saying that, you know, that all of these things kind of will just attract one sort of person. So we are looking at using paper-based information by using Up Our Streets magazine, and then also tapping into other people's kind of newsletters. We're talking to individuals and groups that are based within the, that are known to Eastside Community Trusts. They've been around for quite some time and have collected sort of lots of people's kind of contact details. We're also talking to those organisations that are based locally, like Somali Kitchen, like Evergreens, the Asian Women's Sewing Group. So that, you know, groups and organisations that have been kind of working with specific sort of BAME groups. Again, we're not saying that we are the experts around kind of engaging with those groups. So it's about tapping into those that already exist. We're also using electronic kind of e-bulletins, so our own, but also, again, other organisations that have quite a wide reach within our community as well. Next slide. We're also tapping into radio. So we've been on a couple of BCFM Silver Sound shows, and we're going to be going on to Ujima Radio as well. But we also know, you know, that there are loads of kind of citywide organisations that are working with and identify with people over the age of 55, and so it's tapping into their resource. Again, I've already sort of spoken about the Call to Connect telephone line. But during COVID, we were also in touch with quite a lot of people that needed support around prescriptions and shopping. So we've made a point of sort of trying to stay in contact with those people and let them know about this project, and, you know, just kind of phone up and just find out their ideas as well. So basically what Bianca was saying, I'm very much aware of, that language is a massive kind of issue within this community, that we're not just kind of talking about trying to engage the white community, that we're looking at trying to attract and trying to engage with the BAME community. And we want, to be able to use or be able to kind of tap into those people that want to be able to kind of volunteer. So those that have maybe retired and have got lots of kind of skills to offer. But also we understand and we know that there are people within this community that have lots of skills, that are confident about being able to kind of share what they know. So it's tapping into those people. But also, there may be people around that just have ideas, not just have, but have ideas. And it's about, being able to develop this project, taking into account those ideas. It's no good me sort of setting up loads of things that in the end half the community doesn't even want to engage in. That just doesn't make sense. And also it's having that time to kind of listen to feedback and take those suggestions. It's a peer-to-peer support project, or a peer-to-peer project. And so this project is about people over 55 supporting, leading, volunteering with, creating things with people over 55. And we do know, that there are barriers to people engaging with those things. And it just being open to be able to kind of, shape things that actually suit our community, being, available to kind of listen to sort of, some of the concerns or some of the ideas that people might have. That's it.
Thank you, Tracy. You were quicker than I thought.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. I will put my contact details in the connect in the chat. Sorry. Apologies. I have to go to another meeting at about 1:55, but if anybody's got any questions and I'm still here, then I'll answer them.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tracy. Right. And just to let everyone know, we'll send round details to everyone that's been here today and others that couldn't make it. So if you're interested in Tracy's project or any of the projects that we talk about, then you'll have the details to contact people afterwards.
Cool.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tracy. And great to hear that you're kind of taking on the co-production element that we've learned through BAB has been really beneficial. So yeah, really nice to see that. Okay, so next up we've got Jack Willis from Changes in Bristol. So Jack, over to you.
Hello, so just to introduce myself, my name's Jack. I use they and them pronouns, and I'm a project worker on the befriending service at Changes Bristol. So what I'm going to do is just give you a bit of an overview of what Changes is and what we offer, just in case you haven't come into contact with us before. And then I'll give you a little bit more information about the work that we do, predominantly specifically with people aged over 55, which mainly includes our befriending service over the phone and our walk and talk service. So as it says at the bottom, we are a peer support mental health charity supporting people in and around Greater Bristol. So we support people experiencing mental health difficulties through peer support groups, through the befriending phone service and through a walk and talk service. No referral and no diagnosis is needed to access any parts of our service at all, and it's all completely free to access and people can self-refer. We've been running groups since 2003 and members often stay with us for a really long time, years and years, and sometimes they go on to train as volunteer facilitators and volunteer befrienders as well, once they kind of gain a little bit more confidence to do that. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So we know that sometimes you need to talk to someone else. So we are a peer support service. So the vast majority of our staff and volunteers have lived experience of mental health difficulties. And that shared understanding can really help people to feel understood, to feel connected and to feel less alone. And I think particularly at the moment in the context we're in of unlocking, that understanding of mental health difficulties can be really valuable. And I'm sure we've all experienced that. It can be really difficult to reach out and tell somebody we know that we're struggling. Things like stigma, responsibilities, and not wanting to feel like a burden to other people can be massive barriers to doing that. And sometimes having somebody else who you don't know just to provide a listening space that is non-judgmental can be massively beneficial. So we offer something slightly different to counselling, but also something slightly different to friendship, and that can be really safe and holding for people if they want to talk about their mental health. So we work with people over the age of 18, but we do a lot of work with a number of people over the age of 55. And we also try to hold an awareness of people's intersecting identities. So if somebody is older and experiencing mental health difficulties, and perhaps they are neurodiverse or transgender, then we want to offer them someone who truly is their peer. So we try to recruit from a really diverse background to make sure that we can provide someone with somebody to listen to them who's going to understand what they're going through. And we find that volunteers find volunteering equally rewarding because it's a chance for them to connect, a chance for them to learn new skills, and also really a chance for them to reframe their own lived experience of mental health difficulties in a positive light by being able to share those experiences with somebody else. So our befriending volunteers specifically make a phone call to somebody once a week for up to an hour. And we've really been able to grow that service through accessing a charitable trust funding. Can I have the next slide, please? So Changes Bristol runs 6 in-person peer support groups and 10 online groups every week. And those include closed groups for men, women, women of colour, and the LGBTQ+ community, and our gendered groups are trans inclusive. And to support isolated people who don't use the internet, we started a befriending service at the start of 2020, at the start of the first lockdown. And it began for people who would usually attend our groups but couldn't because of lockdown restrictions. And as the pandemic went on, demand grew and isolation started to impact people's mental health. And we find that now, particularly for people who are digitally excluded and clinically vulnerable, so aren't able to access any of our groups, the befriending service can be a really, really valuable space for them to access that non-judgmental peer support. And quite often, once people have gained a little bit more confidence with their telephone befriender, they will then go on to join our groups or our walk and talk service, so that they can start connecting with other people and start going outside into nature and start building those relationships and community. Could we have the next slide, please? Thank you. So our befriending service exists predominantly to support people who are isolated and experiencing mental health difficulties. And although we don't actually require a diagnosis to access any of our services, we do ask people to self-describe their experiences if they're comfortable to share. And as you can see, the vast majority of people who access our befriending service are experiencing anxiety or depression, or anxiety and depression. And most of the people who access our befriending service don't have other people in their lives to talk to about their mental health. So having a space to do that is really important and can really, really reduce isolation. And a lot of our members tell us that they are often kind of stuck on waiting lists for other types of support, or they've often been referred to CBT when really they want somebody to just talk to and listen to them. So they quite often use us as interim support as they are kind of waiting for other services. I've now got a video which is really beautifully made by Alex, who I think is here. Thank you, Alex, which is going to give you a little bit of information about our walk and talk service specifically. Are you okay to pop that on, if possible, Bianca?
Yes, I was just checking that the audio should play, so bear with me a second.
Thank you.
Can you see that now?
It's a very high-tech moment, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, I'm Sophie and I work for Changes Bristol on the Walk and Talk service. We hold 2 walks a week on a Wednesday and they both run for about an hour. We started doing this service as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic, as we felt like a lot of people were isolated indoors. And even though some groups were still continuing online, we thought it would be a really nice alternative to be able to get people outside again and to be connected with the outdoors.
So Walk and Talk started when members of our charity came to us with ideas because of the problems they were having through lockdown and the pandemic, and they were feeling socially excluded and digitally excluded as well, and finding it difficult to get support. So we set up Walk and Talk, where we can take advantage of the health of nature and exercise, and having a place where you can talk about your issues.
The way it runs is that we choose different locations across the city, and we try and pick green areas where there aren't too many roads, with lots of lovely things to look at, so ponds, trees. We went to a farm recently, so there were lots of animals, which was really nice. And we do like a circular walk for the first hour, and then we repeat it in the afternoon, so there's 2 opportunities to join in. And it's just a really nice thing to engage with, because our members seem to be able to open up quite naturally outside of an indoor group environment. And I think that's because there's a lot of things to kind of ground yourself with when you're outside. So there's things to look at, things to distract yourself with. And it just feels like the most natural way to meet people face to face. And I think a lot of us have kind of lost practice of that. So it's been really nice to be able to engage with people face to face again. Our members at Changes have benefited from the Walk and Talk service in many ways. Firstly, it gives them a weekly routine, which we know is really good for mental health, but it also allows them to still be spontaneous as the locations change on a weekly basis. They've commented that they really enjoy seeing new places in the community, and it's allowed their world to open up, because some of the members haven't been to some of the locations before, so it's new and exciting. Although the walks are very slow and relaxed and mindful, it also improves physical health because you're still active, and that also, members have also commented saying at the end of the walk that they feel kind of like energized at the end, which is great. Some even going on to doing more walking when the walks are over. And some of our members have also commented that they find that there are barriers in joining the Changes peer support groups indoors because of the indoor environment. And so we think it's been a really good stepping stone for anyone who hasn't accessed the Changes peer support groups before, to allow them to be able to move on to that once they become more confident being face to face again after the pandemic.
Changes Bristol's Walk and Talk is a weekly event. No referral is necessary and it's free to attend. So why don't you come along?
Amazing, thank you. I think that really beautifully sums up exactly what the Walk and Talk is all about, and how like beautiful they are to attend, and how people can really create connections and relationships which are really good for their mental health. So it's exactly as the video said, after an extended period of lockdowns and isolation, we started our walking groups to encourage people to socialise and exercise in a safe, non-judgmental environment. And as we've kind of said already, going to something like this for the first time is really challenging for a lot of people. It's quite a scary, anxiety-provoking thing to do, and it takes a huge amount of courage to do it. So we want to make sure that we're providing a safe, very considered space for people. So we always access calm, accessible green spaces. Spaces are always accessible by public transport, and our meeting points are always easy to find. We always make sure there are public facilities available. We go to different locations around Bristol, which is actually really, really wonderful, because quite often people will return to a park they haven't been to since they were a child, and they'll share like really personal, really beautiful memories of kind of 30, 40 years ago, which is just really wonderful to see people talking about that stuff. And we always make sure there's seating for rest breaks and create a space where people can ask for stops if they need to. Could I have the next slide, please? So this is Blue the goose, who I've been told I have to name. He was one of the animals from the farm walk. I'm told he was friendly, although that's not my experience of geese. But it can be daunting for people to join the first walk, as I've said. And our befrienders tell their befriendees more about our walks and encourage them to attend. And everyone attending will be experiencing mental health difficulties and working towards change. And that's whatever change means for that individual. So they will not be the only ones experiencing anxiety. And we share weekly bulletins with walk information, and staff host the walks with volunteer befrienders, and we host 2 walks a day to keep group sizes small. And that's in part for COVID safety, and also because it creates a space where private conversations can happen and people can start to build friendships and relationships with other people. And also our volunteer befrienders sometimes go on the same walk as their befriendee. So they have this relationship where they speak on the phone once a week, and it can be really beneficial to some people to be able to put a face to that name. So it gives them both the opportunity to meet in person, still in a safe and boundaried way, to go on those walks together. Could I have the next slide, please? And then what we found, so we found that most people like to join the walks nearest to where they live, although some members regularly attend walks all around Bristol as they value the weekly benefit. Members like to sit and have a cup of tea or coffee together after the walks and have formed friendships. It's quite common now for people to kind of go off together and kind of continue their day together after a walk, which kind of wasn't happening way back when we started. So it's really, really beautiful to see people building relationships after being isolated for so long. People tell us that they look forward to the walks, and it helps them to get out of the space they're in and motivates them to get outside. And the walks have helped people to explore parks and green spaces they haven't been to before and wouldn't have gone to on their own. And I think that's kind of it from me. And if you do have any questions, then I'm more than happy to answer them in the Q&A. Thank you, Bianca.
Thank you very much, Jack. Really insightful, really great to hear about the projects that you run at Changes. And I think I really like that walk and talk project. I think it's nice to have those kind of opportunities for people to take small steps with other people, and like you said, kind of linking the other projects into each other. So if they meet through befriending, they can also access other activities that you do. So yeah, really lovely. Thank you very much for sharing that. Okay, and last but no means least, we have Dan Waghorn from Wellspring Settlement. So over to you, Dan, to talk about your work.
Thank you very much. There's no PowerPoint presentation, sorry. But hi, yeah, my name's Dan. I'm a community development worker for over 55s at Wellspring Settlement, based here in Lawrence Hill. And I'm going to be talking about what I'm currently up to in my role and its focus on social participation amongst older people. I've only been in the role for 4 months, and it's my first job in a community setting, so I'm very much in a place of learning right now, and I'm aware that there's lots of experience in this call regarding work with older people. So I'm just really excited to have the chance to talk to you all, and would love to treat this as an opportunity to get some ideas and pointers along the way as well. So as well as any questions, please feel free to share any ideas as well. I'll start by telling you a bit about my role and then move on to what I've been up to within it. So yeah, I'm 4 months into a 3-year project funded by St Monica's Trust, like Tracy, that in central and eastern Bristol aims to engage and re-engage people over 55 in their local communities after the impact of the pandemic, lockdowns and regulations over the past however many months it's now been. There are also other community workers doing the same as me under the same St Monica's project in other areas of Bristol, South Gloucestershire and North Somerset as well. The reasons for older people feeling reluctant to leave the house, I think they've been talked about a bit already, and making them reluctant to engage with their communities following the pandemic have been numerous in the conversations that I've had. Continuing concerns about contracting COVID-19, a decline in physical mobility caused by inactivity during the lockdowns, community groups that they used to be involved in no longer running, from the people that I've spoken to, I'd be interested to know if you felt the same, that the main reason I've often come across is that people seem to have become accustomed, as one person I spoke to keeping themselves and sort of don't feel the need to engage with the outside world because they've become so used to not doing that, potentially before the pandemic as well. But I've found that just with a little persuasion and support, you can start to encourage people to back out and start getting involved again. The really exciting thing about this project, as far as I'm concerned, is its focus on asset-based community development, ABCD. This approach, for anyone who's not aware of it, it works on the understanding that communities have the skills, the assets, the people, the resources to solve their own problems, rather than relying on external services, which often run out of funding and disappear. In relying on this constant urban community, like its people, its assets, like community groups, religious organisations and buildings and shops, working to building towards an element of sustainability that can't always be guaranteed by a servicing model. More than anything though, ABCD, it empowers people to take ownership of their communities, using their own wealth of skills, particularly amongst older people, remembering the incredible wealth of skills they've built up over their lives, and to run their own groups, run their own events and services, rather than depending on others. One of the major assets in this local area and elsewhere are the groups and activities that existed before the pandemic that ceased to exist when the pandemic hit. And getting such groups going again has been a key focus of this project. At the settlement, we had, amongst other things, a lunch club that was attended by between 20 and 40, mainly older people each week, and a short walks group as well. And both are at different stages of being reopened, and I'll talk about those two now. The short walks group is really cool to hear about your one as well there, Jack. Our short walks group, it ran pre-pandemic, offering short walks around Barton Hill between sort of 30 minutes and an hour. So they were perfect for a lot of older people who wanted to get active through really gentle exercise, and ideal right now for encouraging people to leave the house when they just may need a little support or company in making those first steps. Since the pandemic hit, I think structurally most organisations will have changed to fit new demands. And then with just general staff turnover as well, means that with the result of this, in our case, the walking group had not restarted basically because the person who used to organise, the two volunteers who ran it, had left the organisation. The two volunteers were really eager to get going again, and because they ran the group essentially independently of any paid workers, they were just waiting to get confirmation that they could recommence. So a simple meeting with them, a little work for me ensuring that the walks would be covered by our insurance and bits like that, and we're ready to begin again in a couple of weeks' time, which would be really exciting to get that going again and getting people out and about in the local area. Sometimes they do sort of art things as they're going around, take some photos, and then come back and talk about what they've been up to as well after. So it'd be really great to have that up and running. And then there's the lunch club, which pre-pandemic was really popular in the local area. And when I'm out and about chatting to people, the most common question they ask is when that lunch club is going to be coming back. It's really interesting, though, there were problems with it before in terms of sustainability and how we can improve that this time if we are to bring it back. And hopefully I spoke to Tracy about potentially working together on it as well. Before the pandemic, the lunch club was essentially being run by admin staff at the settlement who were having to stop their normal work and prepare food on site in our kitchen 1 day a week. There were some volunteers, but the people who, like the majority of people who came were over 55. They weren't involved though in the preparing or serving the food. They attended, they paid their £3 for a lovely 3-course meal, but they were passive recipients rather than properly engaged in the process and had no ownership over it. So quite far from the aims of ABCD that I talked about. And now that things have been starting to open again, we're looking to do the lunch club, but understandably Wellspring Settlement is unwilling to provide admin staff to do the cooking again because it just isn't sustainable in that previous form. And of course the previous attendees are in no way equipped with the experience or willingness to begin this group work, this lunch club themselves, precisely because of their passive role in the process before. And another thing about the lunch club, that despite the majority of Barton Hill residents coming from a Black, Asian or minority ethnic background, the lunch club attendees were almost exclusively white. So it's clear that as this lunch club hopefully begins again, it needs to be different. Restarting the lunch club, it's a big job. It's one I've barely sort of made any moves on. But yesterday, I wanted to talk to you about this, Tracy, as well, because this is quite exciting. I began talking to the National Food Service. It's a group which aims to provide sustainable, resilient and affordable food systems where good food is available to everyone, distributed equitably and eaten with company. And this focus on groups being user-led is exactly what we hope to build in a new lunch club. And I'm excited to see where it goes with this organisation in terms of creating sort of sustainable opportunity for older people to eat together communally, and hopefully change the dynamics of that group in terms of making it more participatory, getting the people who attend involved in the process and taking some ownership over it, and hoping to change the demographic of attendees as well. If anyone has any experience of user or lunch groups, then please do let me know. It'd be really great to chat about that. And then the sort of new things that are able to start getting going in the area. ABCD puts a lot of emphasis on mapping, so I spent a good amount of time researching local institutions, existing groups, and getting to know local people and seeing what they like doing, what their skills are. I think as Tracy talked about, not just doing something expecting people to come, but finding out what people want to do and helping them build that. You get some great suggestions that like we're hoping to put into practice, like someone who loves making things out of litter and so wants to go to our litter pick group and then make like kites out of crisp packets and things afterwards. Really exciting stuff, and sort of finding older people who are willing to do that. It's really fantastic and working with them. But yeah, finding what they want to do and what they want to share with local people. Two really local institutions here sort of became obvious. They're looking to collaborate. Barton Hill History Group and the Health Centre at Lawrence Hill nearby. And their interests matched neatly with the interests of people I'd spoken to when door knocking, or meeting people through the telephone befriending service that we have here at the Wellspring, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Being really new to the area, when I'm out and about, people love telling me about the local area, particularly older people telling me about the history, which buildings used to be where they used to live, and what used to go on in many places. We've got some very interesting stories. And the history group, as its name suggests, it's a community history group in the area at Barton Hill, which has run for 20 years. And upon reaching out to them, we quickly looked at ways to work together. As a result, next week we were doing a history walk to try and encourage local areas history lovers and older people to come together. It will be short, at a gentle pace, and there'll be opportunities to sit down. We'll have hot drinks after, encouraging people to come together a little more, talk about what they've seen, and then really encourage them to come to our weekly walking group as well that I talked about, and leading them into that. So looking to get people out and about, using something they've talked about and talking about the history as something to just lure them in a little bit and hopefully really enjoy it. I got in touch with Lawrence Hill Health Centre after speaking to Claire Mitchell at Age UK, who informed me they had a garden space that they wanted the community to use. Gardening was a really common answer that came up when I've been talking to people in terms of what they like to do and what they wanted to do more of. And so the gardening group started there with a focus on cake as well, and making sure that there was tabletop planting activities so that anyone with mobility issues could be involved as well. And so that's an ongoing thing that we're building there. Now, I've talked about restarting old groups and also creating a few new ones and new events. Finally, there are also some services that were set up largely for older people during the pandemic itself that are now coming to an end and need to be repurposed as things open up, but without leaving people behind who relied on them. One of these is the befriending service that we ran and still continue to run at Wellspring Settlements. Started during the pandemic and continues to make calls to people today who are at risk of social isolation. Funding of this service is ending, and so we're really encouraging participants of the calls who are able to start getting outside again and coming together. So providing that support rather than through volunteers, but them coming together for that social participation. And we're doing that through coffee mornings to begin with, where they can meet the callers that they've been speaking to on the phone for the past however many months. It's really lovely at times when they come together and meet each other for the first time, despite having these conversations over a period of months. I'm sort of really conscious of playing to potential unhelpful stereotypes of just putting a coffee morning on for older people. So I'm trying to make it more than that where possible, listening to what people want to do and putting it into practice. And they've been well attended so far, but it's now about taking steps to pass ownership to the people who come, discussing with them what they want the group to look like, and then discussing sort of small responsibilities that they can take on. So it's being run by them rather than by us at the settlement. Also, any ideas on how to make coffee mornings a little more exciting would be great. We've got regular quizzes, which are popular, and we're going to incorporate some sort of bake-off idea. But I'd love to bring some more ideas to the group to spark their interest and hopefully provoke some ideas of their own. Looking forward to our minibus here at the settlement being up and running again too. And then we can include more people whose mobility issues, preventing them from accessing these opportunities for social participation. And hopefully then we can enlarge the befriending service with this self-run group where contact is made between attendees rather than through volunteer calls. But of course, being careful not to leave those who can't leave their homes without contact in other ways. So yeah, I think as a whole, that's a little summary of where I am 4 months in. Thanks for your time, and yeah, if you any questions or advice or tips, that'd be fantastic. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dan. That was really interesting. Really pleased to hear that you've started to get things up and running again, and yeah, hearing back from local residents about what they want as they come out of lockdown measures and things. And you've definitely come to the right place in terms of learning, because we have lots of it at Bristol Ageing Better, and I'm sure there's a few people here that can also support you. So yeah, really great to hear what you've been up to. We do have some time now for any questions. So if anybody would like to ask our speakers any questions about their projects or the work that they do, then either pop your question in the chat or raise your hand and we shall come to you. And don't all shout at once. If we don't have any questions, that's absolutely fine. But as I say, we will share details of all of the projects that have been talked about today, and contact details of Tracy, Jack and Dan. And yeah, you can find out more from them directly. So if we don't have any questions, oh, Imogen Palmer has raised her hand. Imogen, do you have a question?
I do. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Really interesting. I just had a question. So I'm from Bristol Improv Theatre in Clifton, and we're quite a young-led organisation, but we do get a lot of people, typically in their 60s, coming along to our improv classes and finding them really valuable. I'm aware we've discussed a 55 up. A lot of the projects I'm focusing on, and I'm just curious because it feels very broad as well, 55 up to kind of 80s in terms of different challenges, and like people have said, people don't want to go to something because it's called something for older people because they may not identify as that. So I'm just curious, just because of the expertise in the room about accessing those audiences, any tips about, yeah, I suppose encouraging participation from 55 upwards, but being mindful that there's differences in those categories. Yeah,
I think that's a really good point, Imogen, and definitely something that came out of the BAB programme from lots of different projects, who also found something similar around, not wanting to put people off by advertising specifically for an age group, and wanting to get people to come along. I just wondered if anyone had any thoughts on that. I know Tracy's not here; she's probably got something to say on that. Bianca, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say briefly that one of the interesting things that came out with the BAB evaluation, and it is something to look at again now, is we got people who were kind of ongoing participants in activities to state how they found out about the activity. And one of the largest groups of people who'd found out through paper-based means, so posters or flyers in community settings, in community venues, cafes, places like that. And that was actually a larger proportion than like social prescribing or people who'd found out through some kind of professional in the public or voluntary sector, and much larger than online as well. I caveat with the fact that it's likely that's changed, because there is a really significant number of older people who have got a lot more online, who have kind of joined social media and have started to use the internet to find out about things that are going on. But that was a very valuable way for people to find out about what was happening. So yeah, don't underestimate paper. I think those community notice boards, I was putting some flyers out on some the other day, and it does seem that they're picking up. People are starting to advertise, and local newsletters as well. Not everyone's lucky enough to have one come through their door, but most people in Bristol are, and that's a really important point of contact as well. So the sort of the Bristol Voice things, I know they charge sometimes. Some areas have local newsletters that can put free ads in for things.
I thought you might come in, Claire. Thank you, Bianca.
Yeah, just to add to what Bianca was saying, I guess other learning from the BAB programme is around thinking about the time of day, obviously that you're running your workshops, and how obviously anyone can come along to something that's in the daytime, and people are around in the daytime for so many reasons, but at the same time that is often a fairly appealing time for people that are older to attend something. You may have already considered it, but thinking through your images, and if you're looking for any images that show older people, if you don't already have some potentially of the people who are coming along, then the Centre for Ageing Betters, they have a positive image library of older people doing different activities that is not a stereotypical way. So they're really a great resource, and it's all free. And again, if you already have people coming along to your workshops, then getting fun video clips or whatever of them doing things, and then being able to share those on social media, because then people's friends and relatives might see those, and it just gives a certain image of a group, or even if it's a mixed age group, that's fine too. And encouraging people to bring a friend, bring a neighbour, and to just sort of, it takes time, but through word of mouth, directly encouraging them to bring someone along.
Thank you, Claire. Dan?
Yeah, just to potentially add a bit more about what I found, just the power of knocking on doors as well. So the gardening group that I did recently, everyone who came to it, of the 11 people apart from one, I'd had conversations with on the doorstep beforehand. And so just through targeting areas where predominantly older people lived in the local area, knocking on doors, putting flyers through doors when there was nobody in as well, had a real good result in regards to that. Like, it's fairly time, it takes a lot of time, but I found a really useful investment of time.
Thank you, Dan. Any other questions for the presenters? I've just seen in the chat, David, is that David Melling? Is that you who's leaving? Yeah, good luck with whatever's next.
So, I mean, the meeting get a bit irrelevant because I'm leaving, not a lot I can do. But yes, I'm leaving on Friday. I'll try to let many people that I know, but I know I've missed a lot of people anyway. So there will be a replacement soon. So if you could continue to email me directly, it will be forwarded to my colleague and Maggie Lucas in the start. But just want to say, for the last 5 years, thank you for the support and all the meetings that I've attended. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you very much, David, and thank you so much for all of your support for BAB as well. And it's been great to have your input over the years. And we wish you luck with whatever's next. Brilliant. Okay, so if there's any more questions, if no, okay, let's move on swiftly. So I'm going to pass over to Bianca now, who has prepared I don't know what it is. She hasn't told me. Some sort of interactive thing about social connection, I believe.
Yeah, so it's just a little way of sort of facilitating a group discussion. There aren't enough of us here to warrant breakout rooms, and I know they frighten some people. So as an alternative to all being a room and sort of raising hands or voting, I've set up a presentation through something called Mentimeter. And there's just a couple of questions I was going to ask to look at prioritising the aspects of a socially connected age city, which will hopefully be useful. So a bit of a straw poll. So I'm hoping that the meeting chat is accessible to everyone here, because I've just put a link in there. So if you go to that link, it should bring up a really simple page that will ask you a question that has, you can select up to 3 options for that question in terms of what you think are the most important aspects of a socially connected city. Raise your hand if you've got any problems with that, but if not, I'll give you all a minute or so. I'll share the results on screen and I can share them before everyone's voted, in case anyone is off making a cup of tea right now. Lots of people with the camera off. So do a couple of questions and then we can have a time for anyone to contribute anything vocally if they like. Okay, let's have a look at where that's at. Oh, it's taking a while to show up. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen so you can all see that. Okay, so we have social. Oh, it's still going. Social spaces in neighbourhoods is actually coming up as the most popular option. That's really interesting. So it just shows it's about a lot of it really is about the built environment. In our meeting in September, we're actually going to be focusing on outdoor spaces and buildings, and that's a really good example of how these 8 domains all hugely intersect. And then in second, we have indoor community spaces, so community centres, those spaces that are hopefully starting to safely open back up and be available to people. And then we have public transport as well in third. And I know from the Quality of Life survey last year that the biggest barrier for older people, so people over the age of over 50 and over 65 cohorts, to engaging socially was mobility. So that may be or having a disability. So that may be, as I mentioned earlier, those fluctuating health conditions that can make it difficult to kind of have the energy and means, but can also be to do with the fact that if spaces aren't accessible, it's too difficult to get somewhere. So that tallies a lot with the evidence that we have. Okay, so I think you should be able to move to the next question now. Is that right? Feel free to unmute yourself and say if you haven't got the next one.
Mine just says, please wait for the presenter.
Oh.
Yeah, I've got similar here. Same.
What does it say I have to do? Just said, please wait for
wait for the presenter to show the next slide.
You just need to go to the next slide, Bianca.
Okay, right.
If you on your screen go to the next slide, it will go to the next slide for all of us to present onto the slide you want to be on.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's changed for us now.
Yeah.
Apologies, it's another link. I didn't think it was. Let me just pop that in the chat. There you go, second link. Oh, it looks the same.
Yeah, it's the same.
Okay. Here we go. So you can. see them in real time now. It's quite dramatic, isn't it? Great, okay. Oh, still going. It looks like facilitation of groups to welcome newcomers is going to be the most popular one. Right, yeah, it looks like that's, yeah, top one is facilitation of groups to ensure that newcomers are welcomed. So I will definitely remember to send out those two reports about group dynamics and the warm welcome report from Aging Better in Camden, because that really highlights the importance of that and simple things that organisations who are organising those kinds of activities can do to sort of foster a warm welcome and healthy group dynamics. And then help to find activities, so prescribing and navigating. Again, another great one that really ties in with BAB evaluation, so the Community Navigator Service, which was a social prescribing based service run by Bristol Community Health. We've got some fantastic evidence around that, around the kind of approaches towards social prescribing that can work really well, particularly when it's a sort of one-to-one relationship with someone like a navigator rather than just receiving a prescription, and community-based and able to self-refer as well. And also ties in with a lot of what Tracy and Dan and Jack were saying about kind of supporting people into those activities and helping them to find them. And then we have affordable leisure and cultural events. Yeah, I mean, Bristol is a very dynamic city. It's, you know, we're starting to find the energy again now with restrictions being loosened, but there's lots to do. But it's, you know, it's also can be quite an unaffordable city for some people. You know, lots of things can be quite expensive, whether it's eating out or it's attending those kinds of cultural and arts activities. So making those things affordable and accessible to people. And we do have Active Ageing Bristol have just produced a new Healthy Ageing Directory, which provides an array of age-friendly and affordable leisure activities, so things that foster physical health, but also kind of social activities as well across the city. Great, thank you very much for doing that and for indulging me in that. I hope that's helpful, and it will help contribute to the meeting notes that I'll send out as well. So I'll send out those graphics. And we have a few minutes before Laura will close the meeting. In case anyone here wanted to share anything, another question that I had was whether anyone had any good suggestions for anything that could change in Bristol, any top priorities that could improve age-friendly social participation in the city, if anyone's got any thoughts on that.
We're a very quiet meeting today.
We'll pick on a BAB team member. Actually, I did wonder, Claire, whether there's anything that kind of jumps out from the BAB evaluation that you could share in terms of models that have worked really well that could be replicated across the city.
With what particular aspect are you thinking?
I mean, anything really. I guess the stuff around the kind of built environment is more for the age-friendly strategic work. But in terms of, I mean, is there anything from the navigators evaluation, or even anything that's happening in other Aging Better areas in the groups you're a part of? That we could...
I think it's a very hard one, I think, to overcome, but I think it links into, I guess, another domain as well around just the connecting up of information and how when people have built up the confidence to attend something, if you can build on that momentum to make them aware of other opportunities that they might be interested in, and without pushing them too far out of their comfort zone, then you can really help to build up on that. They've started to participate socially and can build further. And while kind of formal social prescribing services do have a lot of this information, it's also, I think, really valuable if you have a community group for you to also know what else is going on in your local area and just not see yourself as a silo, but see yourself as thinking we're all working with the same people, and trying to make those connections between groups, really. And if your group is not for them, that's fine. Like, they might benefit from something else instead that's potentially more suitable for them, or more, you know, local, or more drop in if that's what they want. So not being too precious about that and just being willing to share that information, I think, kind of comes to mind.
Emma, did you have a question?
Yeah, hi Bianca. Thank you for that. It was all very interesting, and I look forward to getting in touch with some of the groups. It's a little off the subject, really, but I mean, you talked briefly about the fact that Bristol can be an expensive city and that we need to provide activities that are cost effective. Obviously at Goldies we run sessions for anybody, but aimed at isolation, older people suffering with isolation, and we don't generally ask for a payment. We ask for a £2 donation, which a lot of people don't feel that they're able to give, which is fine, and we're going to run them anyway. But we would often look for funding support, and Bristol has always been an area that we've struggled with. In the past, I know that you've done Kickstart grants and things like that to help us go, but they're not running anymore. Do you know if anything like that will be starting again, potentially, at any point, relaunch grants?
I don't know at the moment. I mean, we've got an extension of the lottery for Bristol Ageing Better, and we don't have a commissioning budget at the moment, really, in terms of sort of being able to provide those small grants. Unfortunately, we have really good evidence around the success of that microfunding scheme and of a lot of the commissioning we did, which we are hoping will be picked up by people. So we have the evidence there on kind of how it's worked, particularly with Kickstart, how it's that small amount of funding given directly, or the goods and services given directly into the hands of older people who want to start activities, or older people led asset-based activities, how that really fosters sustainability beyond a short amount of funding. So hopefully, hopefully the other pots of funding that are out there from other providers will be picking up on some of that evidence. We have presented it to them.
Good answer, nothing to add.
And that I was just going to pick up on what you said about affordability, because another piece of evidence out there is that actually, that asking for a donation of even just a few pounds can actually, in many cases, be more positive than offering something for free. It gives people more of a sense of empowerment if they can afford it. If they can't afford it, they can just miss a week and there's no embarrassment there, but it makes people feel less passive. It can also make it more likely that someone will kind of have the motivation to stick with something, even if that kind of re-socialising is difficult in the beginning if they're paying for it. And I know, Daniel, you mentioned National Food Service. I mean, that ties in with their kind of model being about being members rather than kind of passive participants, as you said. So actually, a small charge that people can afford can actually be much better for social connection. Claire?
And just to add to that as well, another sort of like possible model of charging but not charging at the same time is, depending on the nature of the activity, some groups have found that it works to ask for a deposit, like quite a small deposit, if people can afford it, and return it at the end of whatever your activity is. So I think this has tended to work with like arts and crafts based things, where the group person organising it will need to generally buy some sort of materials up front. So ask people for a deposit, so it will be returned at the end. And then our learning is that the majority of people just say, oh, just keep it. You don't need to return it, which then does cover the cost of the materials. While at the same time, if people do need that money back, they're more than able to have that back. And again, it takes the stigma out of it is free, but it's not at the same time. And so it's not like you're not being a charity case. And also it means that people commit and come, because there can also be difficulties if something is free. that people don't turn up and don't let you know. And especially in, I guess, in a world where there might be limited places because of social distancing, and that can be a barrier. So that's just another option. It works for some people and not for others.
Great.
For something inherently free, I was just thinking, I've got my running club tonight. We don't have a charge for that because it doesn't cost anything. You know, there are organic social groups where it's just we put our trainers on and we run. But yeah, where there is a cost, it can make people feel more participatory if they're contributing to it.
Some great thoughts. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so yeah, I guess just a thank you from us for coming along today, and thank you so much to our speakers for sharing your thoughts and experiences, and hopefully we'll make some good connections after this meeting. I hope it's been helpful as like an introduction to age-friendly social participation. Obviously we've seen some great examples of this from partners across the city, and as we've said before, it couldn't be a better time to really talk about this topic, and as people start to get out and about again and kind of need that encouragement and support to do so. So as mentioned, our focus for this year is on embedding age-friendly locally, and we are here to provide that support. So if you've got any questions, if you'd like advice, guidance or support on making your initiatives or your services more age-friendly, then do get in touch with us at Bristol Aging Better. We have lots of resources on our Age-Friendly Bristol website, but obviously have a lot of intelligence and experience within the team as well. So please do get in touch. And our next partnership meeting will be in late September, and we will be focusing on the age-friendly domain of outdoor spaces and buildings, which we've kind of touched on a little bit today. But do keep an eye out for that one, and share with anyone who you think might be interested in that topic. And also wanted to let you know that Age UK Bristol and the Support Hub in Bristol are launching a new campaign in August, and it's called One Small Step to Reconnect. And it's aimed at supporting and empowering people over the age of 50 to reconnect with their community, to rebuild their confidence in going out again post-lockdown, and again really ties in nicely with what we've been talking about today. And so One Small Step to Reconnect will share stories from older people across Bristol about their experience of lockdown and how they're reconnecting with their community again, as well as their advice on how others can re-engage. And it's all about taking those little steps and the little steps that we can take to kind of reconnect, and recognise that this will be different for everyone as well. For some, it might be visiting their local park again or joining a virtual activity, but for others, you know, it might be going back to cafes and in-person activities. So if you would like to get involved in the campaign, then please do contact Age UK Bristol at comms@ageukbristol.org.uk is the email address. Alternatively, keep an eye out for the hashtag One Small Step on social media, and share the campaign and its stories with the people that you work with. And yes, I think that's it from us today. So thank you so much for taking the time to come along, and a huge thank you again to our speakers, and we hope to see you soon.